Thank you, Becky. Well, good morning. My name is Marc Lucenius. I'm the lead pastor here. It's my pleasure to be teaching this morning. And I want to, before I get into the message, I want to remind you of something you got when you came in here. It's called a pray card. And we're going to update this every single month and give it to us so that we can learn to pray for one another and to grow our prayer life. Early on in my faith, some folks took me aside and they taught me how to pray. And my life has been forever different. It's a tool that we've been given. There's a lot of folks as Christians who may be frustrated or find their Christian life regularly disappointing. And when I've come to that place in my own life at times, my way back has been prayer. My goal for us over the next 6 months is to build powerful prayer lives in each of our lives, so that we learn to access God's power and peace through prayer. It's a little simple card where you can write down some of the ways that you want to trust God. It teaches you to pause before you enter into prayer. Slow your mind down. Teaches us to rejoice. Encourages us to ask for the things that God has put on our hearts, and to learn to yield to God's ways in our lives. We'll be teaching this more and more, but we want to remind you this is here for you. And I want to charge you, can you find 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to give yourself to prayer? I'm encouraging, what am I trying to say? I'm convinced that once you get in the habit of it, you'll never want to leave it. Getting into our message, we've been saying this for a while. What do you do when you don't know who you are? You do what everybody else is doing, right? We're going to be talking about love and romance and marriage today. And I couldn't think of any better topic that exemplifies this. We live in a world that's very, very disappointed in their results when it comes to love and romance and marriage. And my hope for you today is that maybe you'll think about departing from what everybody else is doing because you will know that you are different. All right. So here's something that is very likely not on your bingo card for what you expected at church. This is what I received this week. I received a resume this week. Somebody sent me their digital resume. I'm not hiring, and they aren't looking for a job. They're looking for a relationship. And so this young 25-year-old man, he got together with his associate pastor at his church, and he put together a digital resume that he is sending to churches. He's like, hey, there's a lot of different ways to do this. A lot of them aren't working, but I believe in the church, and I believe in pastors. And so you take a look at my resume and tell me if you got somebody for me. And what I love about it is that when the world continues to zag and find disappointment, here's a guy who's zigging. He's taking a different tack. He's trying something different. He's trusting God. He's trusting the church. He's trusting a different way. And I'm rooting for him. If you know somebody in their 20s and is interested in moving to Massachusetts, you let me know, and I'll connect you with this guy. But he's mainly he's sending it to a few pastors every single week up where he lives. And he's a friend of mine, and so he's not interested in moving down here, sorry. But what I'm encouraged about is he's taken a very positive approach, a really positive approach towards romance, a positive approach towards the church, and a hopeful approach to this whole pattern. And that kind of gets back to our series. In our series, we've been going through the book of Genesis. And we're week 5 in this now. And if I could summarize the first 4 weeks, it's all been about what is right with the world. It's about what is right with the world. God has created this world amazing. and in so many positive ways. There's so many things that are right about this world. 99.97% of this world is working really, really well. Yes, there's some humans who are jacking it up, and they've probably hurt you, or you've lost them. But in the big picture, so many things went right in your life to get you here today. And for some reason, us humans have learned to find the 0.03% to obsess about. And in obsessing about those things, we have learned this destructive skill in our hearts called cynicism. And my pastoral heart for Christians, and if you're part of this congregation, one of the things that I would just long that you would have is that you would be done with cynicism. Cynicism will neither worship nor grieve. It's this little thing that enables me to entitle myself to neither honor God, honor other people, or deal with the brokenness of this world. I don't know if you're a C.S. Lewis fan. We're going to talk about him. I'm going to go back to him a couple times today. But there's this moment in the Chronicles of Narnia. It's the first book in the Chronicles of Narnia called The Magician's Nephew. And in that, the hero of all the stories, Aslan, comes in to create the world. And it starts with this song, and it's this beautiful, wonderful song. And somehow this guy Diggory and his really grumpy uncle get to be there to see it. Well, Diggory's a child, and all he could see and hear is the wonder of the creation of this world. It's the most beautiful song the world has ever known or will ever know. And all this wonder starts happening. But in the midst of all the beauty and the glory and the wonder, Uncle Andrew can't take it. He doesn't like the sound of goodness. He doesn't like the sound of wonder. He gets very uncomfortable. He starts getting very agitated. He starts loudly proclaiming his complaints. And he has to get louder and louder and louder because the wonders of the song continue to get louder. And in the midst of that, Uncle Grumpy Andrew gets angry and angrier, and he keeps shouting his complaints. Why? Because he is resisting the goodness and the wonder of this world. And I'm afraid that is normal among our world. There's so much cynicism that will neither see the beauty or grieve the loss of it. And because of that, so many people excuse themselves into meaningless lives where they can't enjoy the world, nor they can grieve what they lost in it. And so they just kind of run from excuse to excuse, from toy to toy and play to play, ignoring the wonder and the beauty of the wonderful world we get to live in all the time. Why? Because they wake up in the morning and turn on the TV and drink a full cup of cynicism. They get their rage on, whatever it might be, but they are blind to all that they lose. Blind to all they lose, and they don't realize it's a wonderful world worth giving our entire lives for. And because they can't see the goodness, they can't see the beauty and the wonders, they just kind of obsess about little things, and they make their lives so small, avoiding goodness, wonder, pleasure, love, avoiding any kind of vulnerability. They don't see how great this world is. And they miss it. And it's because the sin of cynicism. And I'm not saying that there aren't sad things to grieve. There are sad things to grieve. The Yankees lost this week. I don't care. I don't care that the Yankees lost this week, but the Phillies lost this week. And that was sad. And it was really sad the way they lost this week. Oh my goodness, I'm still not over it. Why? Because I love baseball and I love the Phillies. And I'll continue. I'm going to get back and I'm going to root for them next year. I don't care. I'm not going to become cynical. If I become cynical, you know what cynicism takes from me? Baseball. Baseball's awesome. Baseball's awesome. And yes, I am so sad. But I'm only sad because there was something wonderful that was lost. Are you willing to be sad for the wonderful things that have been lost in this world? Are you willing to be sad for the wonderful things that you've lost in your own life? Because I promise you, if you can allow yourself to go there, maybe you'll start seeing the wonderful things in this life that you might have driven past this morning. The wonderful person in your life you might have walked past this morning. Maybe things in your heart that have gotten shrunken by the sin and the corruptions of cynicism might unbreak, get freed, and maybe you'll open up and be released and see things that you've never seen before, see the world in color. Today I want to talk about maybe the best thing that God's ever made. You might be thinking I'm going to talk about river otters, and I would definitely put river otters in the top 10. I'd put that up with baseball and chocolate chip cookies, okay? But river otters are pretty awesome. I could spend a long time at the zoo just watching river otters. All right, if you were listening to the passage, you heard about the first marriage. You saw the wonder of God bring a man and a woman together. And my contention to you is that it's the best thing that God has ever made. And if you're finding yourself resistant to it, that's what the world has broken in you. That's a cynicism that God did not put there. Marriage is absolutely awesome. It's absolutely amazing. And I know there's not a person in this room that has not been wounded by the fails and the flaws and the brokenness that expresses itself through marriage. Every single one of us has been touched by the brokenness that extends itself through marriage. But it only can hurt because of how awesome it could be. I don't care that the Yankees lost. I'm kind of happy about it if I'm honest with myself. But I deeply care about the Phillies, and when they lose, it hurts. The only reason why marriage hurts is because it's the most awesome thing in the world. And my goal for the next 20 minutes is get you to think that marriage is so awesome that you're going to do everything you can to make it work, to go for it for yourself, to make your marriage work, to support everybody else in making marriage work. Because in marriage is the skills that all this world needs to hold itself together. All right? It's the process of getting married and being married. In that are the skills that hold this world together. All right? So let me see if I can get us into this passage. It begins with a problem. All right? The first two chapters of Genesis is so uber positive. God saw that it was good, saw that it was good, he saw it was good, he saw it was good, he saw that it was good, he saw the things were very good. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's no sin in this world, nothing's broken, but somehow God says, whoa, it is not good that man should be alone. Not because of sin, but because of how humans were made. You were made in the image of God, and God is a community, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, forever, perpetually in community. At the center of the world is an angry judge. At the center of the world is a loving God living in community with one another. You were made for union. You were made to be united. You're made to be one with other people. You're made to be connected to other people. You're made for union. And it's not good that a man should be alone on his own. All right, so what you see in the passage is that God starts a process, okay? He starts bringing the animals to Adam to name. Now, I'm looking at, I've read the Bible a few times, and I've read these passages a few times, but for some reason, I'm seeing it differently this time. A lot of times when we think of these things, we think it's just like all happens at once, right? Like a comic strip. You can read a comic strip in about 25 seconds. You think it's like boom, 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 boom. God created the animals, God brought them to Adam, God named the animals, and then all of a sudden there's the woman, you're right? But he had to name all of the animals. That means all the animals needed to get there. He needed to figure out what they are. He needed to come up with names for them. He needed to learn them. This could have taken days, weeks, years, where Adam was naming the animals. It's certainly an expression of authority over the animals. It's an expression of what God would want. But here he is. He's naming the animals. And what the passage is doing, it's setting up for, in so many ways, the climax, the pinnacle of the creation story, when God puts Adam to sleep, takes something out of Adam, and brings her alongside of him. And all of a sudden, almost like a wedding itself, God brings Eve to Adam. And all of a sudden, what you hear Adam say is this: finally. I don't know if you've experienced that if you're married, maybe you've experienced that on your wedding day, or maybe you're not married and you look forward to being able to say finally. I remember that myself. Kathleen and I, we did like I think it was the best wedding ever. Best wedding I've ever been to. But like we were in like the really big church, and like she was 140 pews away when she came in the back. My best man got out his binoculars. I mean, it was a big, big church, right? And there was something that hit me like finally. And I'm not a great crier. I cry when I'm not supposed to, and when I'm supposed to, I don't cry. But man, I fell apart. I felt the finally. See, Adam was alone and it didn't work. And my guess is some of the pain and the disappointment and the stuff that may be even driving some of the cynicism in your own life is that you were made for union and you're not experiencing it. Maybe you're not experiencing it in your marriage. Maybe you long for it in a marriage. Maybe you are married, you have a great marriage, but no marriage is ever going to be enough. No marriage is ever going to be fully satisfying in this world. You're made for union, and it's not working. Maybe you look out of the world and you're looking for union out there, and we're not going to find much of it out there, and it only makes your cynicism worse. But the deep down problem in my heart and your hearts and all of our hearts is that we were made for union. We were made to be connected. We were made for oneness. And we live in a world that does whatever it can to divide. The Apostle Paul, the New Testament, will refer back to this. This passage that we read this morning is the sort of the central passage that has guided the entire world on the topic of marriage. The Apostle Paul comes back to it. And when he's talking about marriage, he goes right back to this verse, and he says, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." And what he does there is he connects marriage so central. And he says, but it's not just about marriage. It's not about marriage. It's about the fact that you're made for union. And you're made not just for a marital union. You're made to be united to your God. And he says, this is a profound mystery. I'm not even talking about marriage. I'm talking about Christ and the church. The thing that haunts us, the thing that hurts in us, the thing that breaks inside of us is that we're made to live in a Genesis 2 world where we are one with God. We're connected to him. We are fully alive in all that he has created. We see his wonders, and we're filled up with love and passion for this world. Why? Because we're connected to the passionate God who creates wonders, and we see it. And it not only lights up his eyes, but because we are connected to him, our eyes are lightened up and brightened up because of who he is, and we're connected to him. And we know how to live really full lives. Why? Because God brings life to him, because we're connected to him. We have this life. We fall back into cynicism because we don't know that oneness. And what marriage does, it teaches us how to live in union with one another and with God. So what I want to do is I want to walk us through this foundational passage that I believe is the fundamental task of all humanity to learn to live together. If we can learn this in marriage, we can learn it in our relationship with God. If we can learn it in our relationship with God, we can bring this kind of hope and wonder into a world that needs it more than ever, okay? So what you see in this passage, in Ephesians 5, and particularly in Genesis 2, is the process of marriage. It comes in stages, but it's an ever living passage. And if I can give you 3 words from David Bettler from the Christian Counseling Education Foundation, he looks at this passage, he sees 3 specific things going on: leaving, weaving, and cleaving. Let me start with leaving. All right, what you see God ask of humans is, when it comes to marriage and when it comes to any good relationship, is that you're going to have to leave. It says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother. Now, what I think is amazing about this is that God has built into humanity the fundamental system of upgrading every single generation. Every single generation, we get to upgrade and get better if we choose it. But it means we need to leave the patterns of the family of origin that we came from. What you need to know is, in the ancient world, they didn't leave the home. They didn't leave the property. What didn't happen before this, and it didn't happen after this. The man didn't actually leave the property. Most times when 2 people got married, they just moved into a plot on the farm, a plot on the property that the family owned, right? And it might have been the grandparents' house, and they died, and so the new young couple moves in, right? They didn't leave physically. Fundamentally, this is about leaving emotionally, leaving financially, even leaving spiritually. When you're marrying another person or you're bonding to another person, you are leaving the way it was done before to build something fundamentally new. That worked out really well for me. My in-laws have a phenomenal marriage. They're great at being a husband and wife. And Kathleen brought a lot of those skills into our marriage. And I brought some skills, other kinds of skills, into our marriage, right? But each of us had to leave some things behind. And when we left those things behind, we created an opportunity to do something new and better. Think about it. Every single generation gets to get better every single time. How many times have you found yourself in a conversation where the other person is just unwilling to leave their assumptions behind? We can go down there with politics, right? Like, yeah, I'll listen to you as long as we'll agree that they're all wrong and I'm entirely right, right? Nobody wants that conversation, right? Because it's a failure of a conversation. Meaningful conversations is when people say, you know what, I will leave some of my assumptions behind, and I will open myself up to what you offer me. And all of a sudden, something new happens, and a better way is seen. That's what happens in a healthy relationship. It's what happens in a healthy marriage, is when we learn to leave our presumptions, our ego, our wounds behind, so that we can step into something new. And for some of us, that we have certain wounds that we're going to need to heal up from, because what's happening is because we are wounded back here, we are forever bound to back here, and we're never able to bring our full selves into this moment. Why? Because we're stuck living in our family of origin. You might hate them, right? But because your hate is keeping you bound and attached to that, and you can never show up to here because you're continuing to fight over here. Until you cut off, leave that stuff behind, you'll never be able to show up to this moment. Leaving your junk in your past is the moment, the opportunity that God gives to give you something new. What this means, though, is leaving something behind feels fundamentally vulnerable. So whether you're married or single, you're going to have to leave your comfort zone. You're going to have to leave things. You're going to have to leave what feels comfortable to you, what feels normal to you. If you grew up in a dysfunctional home, and all of us have dysfunctions in some ways, that dysfunction is normal. One of the best things you can do is to get around somebody else and be like, what is up with that? That's weird. If you hold on to that, you might miss out on something new. If I can just bring out a quote I pull out every year or two on vulnerability, and And this would be my coaching to you as a marriage if you want something to get better in your marriage. If you're single, I tell you, just go for things, but it's going to require vulnerability. C.S. Lewis said, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrong and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, though, you must give your heart to no one, not even to an animal. Wrap it carefully with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. The alternative to tragedy or hurt, or at least the risk of being hurt or tragedy, is damnation. Well, I'm that happy. But if this world is amazing, if this world is awesome, love is worth the vulnerability. Love is absolutely worth the vulnerability. I've never seen greater vulnerability ever in my life than when I saw my father by the side of my mother as she died. Here was a man who had loved her for 35 years, and now she was gone, and make no mistake, he was vulnerable and he was raw, and it was awful. But if I went to him in the worst moment he will ever experience in his entire life and say, would you erase the marriage? He would say, absolutely not. What made that moment so painful was the goodness and the wonder and the love they shared. And they didn't have a perfect marriage. There's a lot of stuff, right? But even the messiness of the marriage, there's so much goodness and love. And yes, there was pain, but the pain was there because there's something good that was lost. Do not hold back in vulnerability. This world's amazing. Marriage is amazing. Go after it. Make your marriage great. Go get married. Go get married and make lots of mistakes in it. Because the love is on the other side of the vulnerability. And it means you're going to have to leave your comfort. Second thing is weaving. It's when we unite two lives into one. Weaving is the passage literally says, and that's why a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife. This is point 2 on the slide. It's when you are united to someone else. Weaving is when we start bringing our lives together, and every marriage is always weaving. Every relationship is always weaving. You showing up today in our church, we wove a couple threads together. We sang some songs together. You met somebody, they gave you a card. There's some weaving that was going on. We're always weaving or sometimes untangling, right? But in particular, what makes a marriage different is it's woven by a covenant, right? You might hear somebody say, like, why would I need a piece of paper to show you that I love you? And there's a certain internal logic there. But the idea of that is fundamentally the marriage is a contract. And in a contract, you're basically saying, of course I will feel love to you, and you'll know it by my actions. But a covenant is fundamentally different. A covenant says, like, I'm going to act loving towards you, whether I feel it or not. And I'm willing to put myself out there and make it public. I don't care. I will make the promise to act loving whether I feel it or not. And some of you are like, man, I've never experienced a covenant like that. The closest thing I've had to a covenant like that is my gym membership, right? I just keep paying it every single month. I get nothing in return, but it just keeps going. I continue to give it, right? But the fallacy out there is people say, like, our love will hold our marriage together. And that's not how it works. Marriage is what holds our love together. Physiologically, there's a heightened experience of hormones for the first 6 to 30 months, just say 20 months. For the first 20 months, you are going to feel love towards that person you have newly been ensconced with, that you're newly connected to. You're going to feel really, really good about that. After about 20 months, you're not going to feel it anymore. You're not going to feel it anymore. You're going to have to love your way into feeling love. And the feeling of love follows the actions of love. The feeling of love doesn't come because you're getting a good deal, because you kept yourself and you waited to get the best deal possible. No, the experience of love is after extending love. And there's nothing better than loving for a very long time. When you love for a really long time, you feel it deeply and it's wonderful, and you've gotten into the practice and you've been loved deeply. But that comes in a covenant, not a contract. In the context of a covenant, you can know that you are safe to be yourself. In the protection of a covenant, you're protected from when that person's feelings change. Marriages go through dry spells, sometimes 2 to 3 or 4 years of a dry spell. Generally speaking, marriages bounce back. Studies have been done that folks who are at that place of marriage, if they just kind of hold on 5 years, they feel a lot differently, right? You can get through a dry spell. Why? Because of a covenant. But if it's about the feelings, that dry spell might be like, well, I guess it's not there anymore. And when you cut off the other options, it forces you to go deeper with the intimacy you already have. That's weaving. The third particular, before I move on from that, if I can just encourage, I want to give something that works for both singles and married couples. I tell my kids when they're dating somebody, he's a practice guy. Until he's no longer a practice guy, he's a practice guy. Or she's a practice girl. And here's why this matters, is that a lot of us, when you're dating, you think of like it's just one bottom line. Either this person is going to be the one for me or they're not going to be the one for me. And what ends up happening is you're forced into this consumeristic pattern where you are like, this either is going to work for me or it's not going to work for me. And you're not becoming like Jesus when you're following that consumeristic pattern. Dating has multiple bottom lines, right? You're not in there just to get something good for you. If you go in there with the idea that I'm going to practice loving other people, and I'm going to continue to try and love other people, even if I know this isn't the right person, I'm going to continue to be kind. I'm going to continue to honor them. And as I practice being like Jesus, I'll start becoming more and more like Jesus. And I can practice being like Jesus even when I'm definitely with somebody that I'm not going to be with, right? And what that does, it also takes a lot of pressure, because you should go out and date a lot of folks, right? And you're going to date some folks, oh my goodness, that you should not be with, right? But it's not about you getting a good deal. Life isn't about us getting a good deal. It's us giving ourselves away for a wonderful world. And you're going to be with a person that God specifically created, an amazing person in their own right that you never want to see ever again, but you can still honor them and love them kindly, right? Dating is about practice. It's not about getting a good deal. Marriage, come back to it, is still about practice. It's not about getting a good deal. And if you're frustrated about not getting a good deal, get over yourself and start practicing. God called you into the marriage not to get a good deal, but to learn how to be like him and learn the satisfaction, this deep satisfaction of loving another person. That's been the best part of being married to Kathleen in the past 20 years. Man, I had a lot to learn, right? Man, it's so good to enjoy the process of loving. There's things I wouldn't have ever seen before 20 years, but we hung in there and we worked hard. And she said, man, so many challenging things to me. And I sometimes listened. So cleaving, number 3, is this. It's fundamentally enjoying the union that God gives. And it says, and the two shall become one flesh. And it's talking about sexual intimacy. It's talking about emotional intimacy and oneness. And if I can just move quickly through this part at the heart of this is learning to enjoy the other person. It's learning to enjoy the person you've been given. And for some of us, like, we get caught up on trying to understand the person you've been given. I just got to tell you, you're not. Like, if you're a man and you're married to a woman, like, you're just not going to get it. I still don't, and you don't get it. You're not going to get it. You're just not going to get it. And women, you continue to try to understand us. We don't understand us. Like, what are you doing? And a lot of times our obsessions of trying to understand is deeply rooted in our desire to control and make them what we want them to be, and which only feeds more disappointment, more cynicism. If we could just stop and accept the person and receive the person that God's given, all of a sudden we'll realize, wow, this person was made in the image of God, and they have these amazing, wonderful things that I can now enjoy. The first move of every single relationship and then maintains every single relationship is enjoyment. Sexually, emotionally, physically, even financially. And singles, when you get ahead of this process on making yourselves one with somebody financially, it creates dynamics for abuse. When you get ahead of people, when you get ahead of the situation, when you become one with somebody, emotionally, it creates an environment for abuse. Sexually, it creates all sorts of bonds and difficulties, and it creates an environment that's ripe for abuse. That's why God says you need to be patient with this, because at the heart of it must be enjoyment, not abuse. Not getting a good deal, receiving the one, being able to say, finally, receiving that person. Well, right after Adam says, finally, he writes the first song the world has ever heard, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. There's nothing better than that kind of intimacy at every single level. And the heart, your first and last job of your marriage is to enjoy that. Get over all the stuff. Receive and accept the person that God has given you. Enjoy them for who they are, not who you want them to be. And learn to enjoy this person. Learn to enjoy the world. Learn to enjoy the wonders of this world. And let that enjoyment push the cynicism that's been corroding your soul and our world out. And learn to enjoy life. I'm telling you, this world needs to see a community of people who knows how to enjoy this world, who knows how to enjoy another person, who knows how to be positive, who can see the wonders of this world and can call this world into living fully for an amazing world that we should give our entire lives to with utter abandon. Why? Because it's worth it. Because God is worth it. He has already done this himself. He came in the person of his son, Jesus. And he went all the way to the cross. He did not hold anything back so that he could be united with you, so you can experience his union, so you can experience his passion, his wonder, his love, his ability to overcome all the cynicism and all the division and all the garbage out there and to bring us into living fully for God. The thief comes to steal, kill, or destroy. Jesus says, I have come that you might have life and life to the full in union with him. And we could practice that in every single one of our relationships, particularly our marriage. We have another opportunity to worship this God. So would you stand with me? And as we're going to sing a song that's going to remind ourselves of the story of what God has done in this world, the story of what God has done in our lives, the story of who we are, so that we might celebrate and live in light of all this goodness. Let me pray. Dear Jesus, we step back and God, I humble myself with all the reasons and all the cynicism and all the ways I avoid seeing your wonder. God, we release our disappointments and we drop them to the ground. We look up to our eyes to you, and we see a great, great God. And we boldly pray, give us the union we long for. Not just the union in Jesus, but I pray for those who are really experiencing pain in their marriage. They're grieving something amazing that isn't what it ought to be. Jesus, would you come and bring comfort and hope? God, for those who aren't married and long to be married, this may only stir up that ache, may only stir up the grief of what has been lost or what they don't have yet. God, I pray that you'd give them hope and boldness to enjoy the world that they have and to go for it when it comes to being vulnerable, to go where you've called them to when it comes to romance. For those who have lost a marriage and they know this pain of what it could have been, God, would you remind them that they are always united to you. And because of your resurrection, we know that all pain will be redeemed. God, if their desire, Lord, I pray that you would reunite them and give them the gift of marital union. God, we pray for our community and our world, that it could once again learn how to leave, weave, and cleave. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.